Well, hello everybody, and a very, very, very warm welcome to you all. It's really, really great to see everybody here tonight, and I think we might have hit the nail on the head with the topic. Home batteries, I think, has been the missing link for quite some time, so that's really good to see you here to learn more about solar and home batteries. My name's Karen Roberts, and I'm the President of Healesville Community Renewable Energy, and my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. Before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge that this event is taking place on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of Kulin Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and definitely emerging. I'd also like to thank all the people who have made this possible tonight, and that includes Yarra Rangers Council, Yarra Energy Foundation, Sustainability Victoria and Smart Energy Lab. All those groups have got together and helped us tonight. And I also need to let you know that this event is being recorded and it will be available on our website later on. Now, we don't usually do this, we usually get straight into it, but I'm just going to ask for a few minutes of your time tonight and give you a quick rundown and share with you a few things that Healesville Core get up to. So starting with these lovely people here, that's our current committee, minus one person. And you can see our mission there is basically to assist our community transition to renewable energy. So Healesville Core's initial goal was to run a lot of these events, and we did in the past. And that's just an overview of a few of the many events that we've run over the last 8 years or so. We also offered bulk buys in the past, and that's something that we decided a couple of years ago not to continue with, simply because of the resourcing, and also because there's so many more opportunities out there, and there's so many great websites, so we decided to put our resourcing into other areas. However, over the years we've done solar panels, hot water heat pumps, the reverse cycle air conditioners, and the most recent one was a few years ago, we did the EVs. And this is one I've already been asked about tonight. This is a program that we are quite proud of, actually, and it really does help the community. We've actually got quite a few what we call home energy efficiency advisors, and they just come over to your place if you invite them, and they assess your home for heating and cooling. And up to 40% of your power bill is actually related to heating and cooling. So this is quite a significant part, and they'll just let you know where the heat might be escaping, and just have a look at your power bill and just let you know ways that you can save money and become more comfortable. So come and chat to us afterwards if that's something that you would like us to do. It is free for our members and available for a small cost for others. And at the end of it, we give you a really good report. Lots of good information. Something else that we're pretty chuffed about is our Community Energy Revolving Fund that was set up a few years ago. So the story behind this is that we got a $90,000 grant, and that was initially was supposed to just put solar onto 3 community buildings. But it was decided that instead of doing that, we'd turn it into a revolving fund so that Healesville Core organise the installation of the solar on community buildings and pay for it, and then the communities actually give us the pay us back the interest-free loan using the savings from the power bills. And then at the end of it, of course, they own the solar and they reap the benefits. And the best advantage of this is that there's no upfront costs for the community group, because that's quite often a stumbling block. And we have completed 4 now, and we're in discussions with another community group, which is very exciting. And I should mention this isn't just related to Healesville. We are trying to expand to Yarra Junction and down the Warburton Highway. So if there's anybody here tonight who is involved with a community group that could take advantage of this scheme, please come and have a chat with us. This was a lovely project we did last year. We got another grant from Sustainability Victoria, and we decided to use part of it to provide some energy efficient upgrades to our lovely Badger Creek Hall. That's all the things that we did there. And we also, there was a community home that's been purpose built by Common Equity Housing, and we also did some energy efficiency upgrades for that. So that was another really satisfying project, actually. And we do community involvement, all these sorts of things. we run these events like tonight, the Yarra Valley Community Power Hub, that was a huge project. We've engaged with local businesses, merged with Yarra Energy a couple of years ago. We turn up at local markets and local events as much as we can to spread the word. And that's about what we do, and there's things that we're looking towards in the future. Now, the reason I'm chatting about this today is because, as you can see, there's a lot happening, and I can't read that. And there's a lot that we're proud of, but it's all done by a relatively small group of people, and it'd be really great to have a few more volunteers to call on. And I hope you're here tonight, not only because you want to learn about solar and home batteries, but perhaps you have an interest in sustainability and our gorgeous community, and perhaps you'd like to learn a bit more. And it's great to have new people on board. They bring their fresh ideas and their energy and enthusiasm, so it'd be great to have a few more people join us. In fact, I have to say the last few years, one of the most enjoyable things for me personally is getting to know everybody in our committee and becoming good friends. It's quite enjoyable. So here's the call to action, peoples. At our AGM that's coming up in a couple of months, we actually need a new secretary and a vice president. And we're also looking for somebody who can help us with our comms and marketing. And there's a heap of other little things that you can do. You can just only a few hours a month if you can help us hand out flyers, plan events like this, help us with events like this, anything like that. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Every bit helps. And so why do we do this? Experts believe that we're now in the critical decade for climate change action, and that decisions made and actions taken during this time will significantly impact whether the world can keep global warming to where it needs to be. And since 2017, Healesville Core has been taking action at a local level. So if you do want to know more and can spare a bit of time, please come and see me or one of the other committee members at supper, or you could just jump on our website. Thank you very much for our time. Whoa! Thanks for that, didn't expect a clap. All right, so to kick off the evening, let's talk about the missing link in the renewable energy sector, the home battery. So here in Healesville, we are really, really lucky to have our own local renewable energy guru, Glen Morris. And tonight he's going to talk about home batteries and tell us about the new federal home battery rebate and how that might affect us. And folks, there will be a Q&A at the end of the night. So if the information you see and hear tonight, you've got any questions, please do write them down and we'll attempt to answer them at the end of the night. So if I can call you up now. Thank you, Glen.
Thank you, Karen. Cool. Well, there's me. So this is kind of a very exciting moment in the world of batteries. There's been this incredibly generous program launched on the 1st of July by the federal government called the Cheaper Home Batteries Program. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that and also talking a bit about the benefits of having a battery system, a home battery. But it's not just for homes, it's also for businesses. So even though it's called the Cheaper Home Batteries Program, if you're in Australia, you're eligible for it. So there are some limitations on that in terms of capacity and installation requirements, but I'll explain those as we go. So I run the Smart Energy Lab up at Mount Tillibuwong within Murumura Co-op. I've been a local person here for 23 years now, living off-grid all that time. In fact, I've lived off-grid most of my adult life, so I live and breathe batteries. Okay, so what's the benefit of a battery system on your home? Well, it really needs to think about the whole benefit. So, for instance, if you have solar and you don't use energy when the sun's shining, the problem is that solar energy is mostly either going to be curtailed, i.e. you're export limited, or it's going to be exported to the grid at a very, very, very low rate. Gone are the days when you got 44 cents or more, 66 cents, for exporting energy to the grid. Now it's all about self-use. So what a battery is a way of capturing that surplus during the day, storing it, a bit like hot water service, and using it at night time, or even during the day when prices are high. So by itself, a battery can shift energy, whether it's from renewable sources, like from solar, or even just playing the game of what's the cheapest time to use electricity and charging batteries. Just before the event started, I was having a conversation with a couple of people out here looking at retail programs where you can have a couple of hours of free power, and they're going, well, we charge our batteries during those 3 hours of power and use it at night time. So using a battery, even without solar, can help reduce the cost of electricity. But the barrier has been the cost of batteries. I mean, frankly, when I gave my last talk here probably over a year ago, I was saying the payback is about the same as the warranty. So after 10 years of owning a battery, it's only just paid for itself. But now with two things happening, the Cheaper Home Batteries program offering a very generous rebate, approximately 30%, but I'll talk about how it's calculated in a minute. But the other thing is battery prices have plummeted over the last decade. In 2018, the price back then for cells has gone down 90% today. So it's 90% cheaper to buy a battery than it was in 2018. There's not many things that drop like that. It's been dropping for quite a long time. Solar panels have done a similar trajectory, but over a longer period. When I first bought my first solar panels, they cost $15 per watt. So I bought a 75-watt panel, cost me $800. These days, panel prices are sub 20 cents a watt. So that's an amazing trajectory. And of course, you also, I'm not going to steal the thunder of Lloyd, who's going to be talking about solar, but solar panels also get a rebate. So it's a win-win. So solar panels can generate energy during the day and you can store it in batteries, but also people see a benefit in having resilience. And resilience for a community like ours, where we're a little bit remote and there's trees around and there's storms and power lines come down, having power even when the grid fails is, how do you put a price on that? So resilience is another benefit of having a battery system. When you select a battery system too, you have to consider capacity and power as well. So you might not be able to run your whole house, you might be able to run the essentials, just depending on how big a system you have. So you can also optimise the cost of electricity. I've mentioned this before, which is because we're all on time of use metered now, there's different prices during different times of the day. You can avoid those high peak prices by using your stored energy and then use grid power when it's cheap. So it can shift the cost by using storage. So yeah, what is the Cheaper Home Batteries program? So like I said, it's a federal program. So there was a battery rebate under Solar Victoria, but that's finished, I believe. Yep. But now we've got the federal program. It was announced prior to the election. Once the election was confirmed, Labor launched the program. The interesting thing was that you couldn't claim the rebate till the 1st of July, but you could actually buy the battery before and wait for the 1st of July before you claimed it. There was a few gotchas in there. You weren't allowed to turn it on. So, yeah, probably wasn't a great idea, that part. But anyway, now we're past the 1st of July. You're all good. There's a few requirements too. So, like I said, it offers rebates for homeowners installing solar and batteries. So there's a federal solar rebate program, which basically covers the cost of solar panels. I like to say solar panels are free now. You're just paying for the installation labour and the balance of system. The aims is actually, from a government's point of view, is to increase the amount of renewable energy on the grid and help meet our renewable energy targets. Now, if you think about the solar growth in Australia, we're actually the world leaders in per capita installation of rooftop solar. Hopefully we'll be the world leaders in batteries as well. At the moment, we've got the amount of rooftop is about double the amount of utility solar. So roofs of people's homes is where all of the majority of solar is being generated right now. What we want is them to soak up that with batteries. Why? Well, from a network's point of view, from an electricity network's point of view, we have too much solar. It's causing problems. It's basically generating in synchronisation with the sun all across Australia, within time zones. And so, in the middle of the day, we just have too much solar coming in. Putting batteries in homes is kind of the best way to solve the problem, because you don't have to distribute that energy to some big battery out in some industrial area. You're actually capturing it from your roof into your battery in your home and not causing disturbance on the grid. So that's a really big plus from the network's operation point of view. The aim of the program is to cover about 30% of the battery cost, but then again, that's just a figure that the government used to give an indication, but it's not actually a 30%. It depends on how you calculate it based on kilowatt hour capacity of the system, and I'll show you the formula in a minute. The program runs through the 2030. It was announced in the budget as they didn't actually say what it was for. It's kind of one of those sneaky announcements yet to be declared, but now once the government took control, they announced that it was for batteries. It's a $2.3 billion program running over 5 years. And on top of that, they said it's uncapped. So that means even though they've budgeted $2.3 billion, the plan is not to stop at 2.3 if they get there. And we will. Currently, we're averaging 1,000 batteries a day being installed under this program. That's amazing. In fact, there are more batteries being installed now than solar panels in homes, or solar panel systems. So, yeah, batteries are really taken off. The incentive is a bit like the solar incentive program, reducing each year slightly. So the idea is that the cost of batteries are coming down, so the incentive will follow that reduction. In a way, that's an encouragement to get in early to get the maximum benefit, but then again, you don't have to. You're still going to get the benefit. Okay, next slide, Matt. Oh, actually, can you go back one? What I've done through here is put pictures from my lab of different battery systems, just so you know what we're talking about. So this is actually my house, and this is an all-in-one system, i.e. There's an inverter on the top. There's 4 8 kilowatt hour battery modules, so it's 32 kilowatt hours of storage. And I've actually got a DC fast charger. That's what the second from the top unit is. It's a bi-directional fast charger, so it means I can use my car to run my home and vice versa. Yeah, and I've put brand names up there because people kind of say, whose battery is that? But anyway, you'll see quite a few brands fly past. Okay, Matt, next slide. Here's another one. So who is eligible? Australian households, small businesses and community organisations. Nominal capacity of it between 5 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours. Now, 100 kilowatt hours is a pretty big system. The one on my house, most people would have considered that quite big at 32 kilowatt hours. So it goes right up to 50 kilowatt hours of rebate, but 100 kilowatt hours of total capacity. So that means if you go for 100 kilowatt hour battery for your community group, the first 50 kilowatt hours is covered by the rebate. The remaining 50 you have to fully fund. It must be a CEC approved, so the Clean Energy Council maintain a list of approved battery systems. The purpose for that list really is to ensure that the quality is justified and confirmed. I mean, Australia actually had a big problem in 2012 to 14 with a lot of solar panels of dubious quality being dumped on the Australian market, and as a result the federal government introduced through the Clean Energy Regulator an approved list. It meant that they checked that these were genuine panels, they weren't counterfeit, and that they actually met a minimum basic safety standard and performance standard. And the same is being applied to batteries. You can only get one bite of the rebate, so don't think, oh, I'll just get one battery to now and maybe next year I'll get another. Well, you can add to it, but you won't get the rebate again. So you get one shot at this rebate. And it can be additional to an existing system. So you might already have a battery system. You want to upgrade it, you can. So the additional is also considered as part of it. So here's another system. In fact, there's 3 here in this picture. On the left is just a solar inverter up the top left corner there. That's a solar edge in the darkness. You can't see it very well. In the middle there, we've got an all-in-one e-store system with quite a small battery. It's 10 kilowatt hour with a 2.5 kilowatt inverter. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a 10 kilowatt 3-phase inverter at the top and 25 kilowatt stack of batteries. Now, stackable batteries have become really popular because A, they look great, B, they don't take up a lot of space, C, you can size them to suit your needs. So each of those battery modules, I can't remember exactly what they are, but I think they're 2.8 kilowatt hours each or whatever, and you can just choose how many you need for your system. So, and often they're upgradable too. Just be aware that when someone says we've got an upgradable battery system, they may not make that product for very long. They might make it for a year or two and then they move on. So don't expect in 5 years' time you're going to add another few to the stack. Next slide, please, Matt. So what about PV with your battery? As I said, there's the federal program, the Small Scale Renewable Energy Scheme has been running for decades now. It runs through to 2030 as well. So in parallel with the Cheaper Home Batteries program, we've also got the solar rebate program. The battery system must include solar as part of it. So if you've got an existing solar system, you can add a battery to it. If you haven't got anything, you need to get solar and a battery, because it's about renewable energy. They don't want you just kind of using grid power as the only source of charging. And so that there may be it may be a new system or an existing. So in this picture here, I've got yet another one from my lab. I've got a lot of systems at my lab. I do testing for companies. They'll send me the product and we run them through its paces and write a report and use it. So this is a Fox ESS system, once again stackable. What's impressive about this stack is the capacity in that rather small, I mean, it's only 1.3 metres high, it's 41 kilowatt hours in 1.3 metre high stack. That's because energy density's improved a lot over time. So we're seeing a lot of storage power in a small footprint. And considering the size and the available space around people's homes, small footprint's pretty important. Next slide, please, Matt. So what size battery should I get? It's probably one of the first questions people ask. There's lots of answers to that question. It could be, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve the lowest cost of ownership, so the quickest payback in terms of it saving you money? Are you trying to reduce your amount of grid power and become living on just renewable energy as much as possible? Are you wanting to have backup so that when there is a storm you can run for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? All those things that affect the size that you might select. So do you need backup as well as reducing cost of electricity? That's kind of what I'm getting at. How big will your solar system be? You can actually have too big a battery in my mind. If you've got a very small solar system, let's say it's 1 or 2 kilowatts and you've got a 41 kilowatt hour battery, chances are you'll never be able to fully cycle it in a day. Like you might be able to discharge it in 1 day if you really go hard, but it could take a week to charge up, a week of sun. And so that's not a really good match. So having someone who's going to design the system for you, consider the size of your solar system with respect to your battery. But there is a sneaky way to get around that, which is using off-peak electricity to charge it as well. It's not illegal, you're allowed to do it. So you can sort of compensate with that. How long will you remain at this installation? I mean, the average ownership in Australia at the moment is 10 years before people move. So, if you're only planning on being in the place for a few years, is it worth investing in a battery? Because under the Cheaper Home Batteries program, you can't take it with you. It has to stay with that installation. So it can't move with you. So, in a way, my take-home message is go big or go home, because you only get one bite at this rebate. So probably choose the largest system you can afford would be a reasonable bit of advice. But of course, it's all about your costs. This system here is a BYD battery with a Fronius Gen 24 10 kilowatt 3-phase inverter. BYD were, I call them the OG of stackable batteries. They were one of the first companies to come out with this idea of making them modular, no cables, everything just plugs in. It's kind of Lego land to assemble one of these things. Looks great, but that's actually only 11 kilowatt hours, and it's about the same size as the one that I just showed you before that's 41 kilowatt hours. Just a big change over 5 years, because that's actually a 5-year-old battery. So yeah, energy density's improved a lot. Next slide, Matt. Now, people sometimes say, oh, I've heard lithium batteries are a bit dangerous. I've seen on YouTube videos and on TikTok cars catching on fire and people's scooters catching on fire, and lithium batteries we know can burn intensely. There's been a fair few incidents. And so they go, well, what about a non-lithium battery? Unfortunately, at the moment, the only batteries on their CEC approved list are lithium. And that's kind of not a great idea, but it's not intentional. It's the way that the requirement is that the battery needs to meet a certain test standard, which was written for lithium-ion batteries. Now, I'm actually on the committee that writes the safety standards for batteries, and we are at the moment in the process of trying to fix that with a new technical specification which will include other chemistries. But at the moment, it's only lithium. So we're looking forward to more choices. For instance, CATL, some people call it CATL, but it's just an acronym. CATL is the biggest lithium battery manufacturer in the world. They make something like 30%, 40%, I think, of all the lithium batteries in the world for electric vehicles, for home batteries, for utility batteries. But they've now announced that they're going to start making sodium-ion batteries. They're actually making them, and they've already got some small versions out in China. Like you can believe you can buy a sodium-ion EV now with CATL cells in it. But they reckon they'll be able to make them 10 times cheaper than lithium. So we've gone in 10 years, 90% reduction in lithium prices, and then CATL just pops up and said, oh yeah, we can make it a tenth of that by changing to sodium. The other thing about sodium ion is that it's one of the most abundant material elements on the planet. I think about the 5th most abundant. It's salt. So if we run out of seawater, we're in trouble. So sodium has got a lot of interest, but at the moment it still doesn't have the capacity that lithium has. So for instance, with an EV, it wouldn't have the range, but it's also got some other nice features, which in terms of safety, it's much less prone to thermal runaway, so it's safer. It can be transported completely discharged, so fully safe to transport. The lithium battery, you can't fully discharge it. It's always got some energy in it. So that's something to look forward to, is sodium-ion batteries. But then again, it might be some years before we see actual products arrive. So over here, I've got an interesting mix of batteries. On the left-hand side is an all-in-one Fox ESS lithium-ion battery system. In the bottom right-hand corner, I've got a flow battery from an Australian company called Redflow. They actually they did make the smallest flow battery in the world. And usually flow batteries are huge tank-sized things in shipping containers, but this is a 10 kilowatt-hour flow battery. One of the benefits of a flow battery is it uses no dangerous materials, so it's zinc and bromine in a tank. It's got pumps that circulate the zinc bromine solution around and plate the zinc onto carbon plates and create a battery. And then when you use the energy, the zinc goes back into solution. It's actually effectively a battery manufacturing plant in one. But unfortunately, this company has gone into receivership, so we can't buy them anymore. But there are other flow batteries on the market, not many, but they unfortunately aren't able to access the Cheaper Home Batteries program because they're not on the CEC list. So kind of a bit sad. Next slide, please, Matt. All right, so this is how is the rebate calculated? This is where we get down to the numbers, and it's all about the usable capacity of the battery. So the rebate is delivered at 9.3 STCs. We're calling them battery STCs. So STCs are small-scale technology certificates, the same certificates that are created by the solar panels that you put on your roof. So when you buy a solar PV system, you get an upfront discount. The reason for that is the generation over the next up to 2030 years up to 2030 is being claimed as an upfront discount, and the certificates generated by that reduce the cost of your PV system. The same is being used for batteries, but the difference is the government's buying those certificates, which means there is a fixed price, whereas the PV STCs fluctuate a little bit. They used to go up and down a lot, but not much anymore. So the government's budgeted $2.3 billion to buy those certificates, so you've got a confidence in that price. It's typically offered as a point of sale. You don't take those certificates and trade them yourself. I've had one customer in all my years actually do that. It's a lot of paperwork. I don't know why he bothered, but he did. It's probably easier to let your retailer just trade it for you. But the retailer will clip the ticket and take a small proportion of the certificate value because they've got to do the paperwork. So down the bottom there, I've given an example. If you have a 10 kilowatt hour battery and it's 90% usable, because batteries are often sold as nominal capacity, but you can't use all of it. Love that kind of save. So 90% usable, therefore we've got 9 kilowatt hours that we can claim under the rebate. At 9.3 STCs per kilowatt hour, that's 83 battery STCs, and the price for battery STCs is around $40. But after the retailer has done their due diligence in terms of processing those, they'll often offer you somewhat less, $36, $37, maybe $38 per certificate, just depends. And therefore the rebate on that 10 kilowatt hour battery, which is what this one here is on the screen, is nearly $3,000. So pretty good. Anchor, there you go. That's a new player in the Australian market. Anchor's been very well known for their consumer electronics, power banks, phone chargers, etc. But now they've got a new brand called Anchor Solix, and they make all-in-one systems. Very, very nice looking unit. So there we go. Matt, next slide. So how do I choose a retailer? So when you buy a system, whether it's solar PV or a battery system, the retailer needs to meet some criteria for you. You need to be sure that what you're buying is a CEC approved product. So there is actually, it's publicly accessible list on the Clean Energy Council website. Just look for products, look for batteries. If it's an all-in-one system, you look for inverter, and it'll list the battery combinations with that inverter. And if the actual product that you want is on that list, you're eligible. The person installing it must be a Solar Australia accredited installer. There'll be a licensed electrician as well, of course, but they also have to do extra training to be able to install battery systems. SAA accreditation has different categories. They can be solar only, they can be solar and battery on grid, or they can be off grid. So they've got to have the right accreditation. I would suggest you ensure it's an upfront discount so you don't have to go through all the paperwork. Pretty much that's the standard offer. And you need to confirm that all of the documentation is compliant. Now, you actually have to make some declarations. You have to make a declaration that you're not going to sell the system. You can't just get a rebate on it and then put it on the open market and sell it. So there's declarations required by the retailer and the end user and the installer. It's worth comparing quotes. There's different ways of doing this. You can just, go on Google and search for some installers, or there's companies that offer comparable quotes. So they don't actually sell systems. What they do is they source quotes from a number of different sources and present them to you. And often those companies will also have reviews. So you can see what other people, what end users thought of that company's work and their products. So that's a pretty good approach to do a comparison on quotes. One of the requirements of the Cheaper Home Batteries program is that the system is capable of being part of a virtual power plant, VPP for short. What's a virtual power plant? A virtual power plant is where a energy provider can aggregate lots of individual systems through communication and trade your energy on the wholesale market. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if you sign up for a VPP, they can actually charge or discharge your battery under certain conditions that they will lay out in front of you as part of the deal, and you'll get paid a much higher rate. So for instance, if they export energy from your battery, you'll get paid a lot more than you would if you were exporting solar. So a VPP can add extra value. But there is a subscription usually associated with that, so you have to do your due diligence. Is it worth it? You might have to pay $400 or $500 a year to be part of a VPP. Is it going to return that value or more? So, buyer beware. Lastly, check your installer and your retailer's reputation. I mean, when a government rebate comes along, there's a rush to try and get everyone's attention. You'll see TV ads, of dubious origin. So, just beware of the shiny offer on a Friday afternoon that looks too good to be true, because it could be. So do your due diligence. This is another interesting product. This is a green ESS all-in-one system with removable small batteries as well as the main big battery. So on the left-hand side is a 20 kilowatt hour battery pack. At the top is a 5 kilowatt bidirectional hybrid inverter. But on the right-hand side, those little pigeonholes have small battery modules that you can plug into all your e-devices, your e-scooter, your e-bike, your lawnmower. They sell a whole range of consumer products that use their own small batteries. Kind of an unusual idea, but there you go. So that's the green ES. It's a Melbourne company, by the way. Okay, Matt, next slide. And what about businesses? Yep, businesses are eligible as well. They can receive this rebate. Remember, they can claim a 100 kilowatt hour system, but only the first 50 kilowatt hours will be rebated. So, I mean, that's still going to be, you know, $16,000 to $18,000 of rebate. So it's pretty generous. And it may be an existing system. So there's actually a system I visited in South Africa earlier in the year. That's 96 stacks of batteries, 4.2 megawatt hours, running a cable factory. Pretty amazing. So there you go. So businesses getting into batteries as well for lots of reasons. In South Africa, it was because of load shedding, but in Australia, it's more about peak demand charges or insufficient capacity to run the appliances they need. So businesses are getting into batteries as well. Next slide, please, Matt. Are batteries a good investment? Well, remember I said at the beginning of my talk that my last talk here some years ago, or a year and a bit ago, I was saying it's a 10-year kind of payback typically, and the warranty's about 10 years. I think we've probably more than halved that now. With a reduction in the cost of batteries plus rebates, it really is starting to look like a very good investment. So definitely long-term savings from your electricity. You could even say increased property value. Selling a house that not only generates its own energy and stores it, that can be of benefit to the cost, to the value of the property. And one of the great things is energy independence. The fact that, you know, if the grid fails, your lights stay on. So battery prices, I've mentioned already, have dropped like 90% the last 10 years. Warranties are typically around the 10-year mark, though there's some offering longer warranties, and some do that, you know, 10 plus 10 offer where you pay extra to get the extra warranty. So that can mean quite a long serviceable life. And some systems are expandable to meet future growth, whether it's adding to an existing system or a parallel system to it as well. So you don't actually have to think that this is as big as I can ever have. On the right-hand side here, I've got an all-Australian team. There's the Power Plus Energy Battery. It's a Melbourne company. In fact, they're the biggest manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries in Australia. They're right here in Melbourne, and that's a stack of 40 kilowatt hours. Seems to be a favourite number of mine. And actually, I recently claimed the Cheaper Home Batteries program on that. So even though I've already got batteries, I still was eligible to claim on that system. The inverter, by the way, on the top left-hand corner there is from Cellectronic, which is another great Australian manufacturer, 61-year-old Australian company, one of the longest inverter companies in the world. They started off making transformers and other power electronics and then moved into inverters about 30 years ago. So they made a special one for me and made it gold for the 50th anniversary of our community. So we had 50 years of renewable energy, and they made a gold, we call it Goldilocks inverter. So there you go. Next slide, Matt. Now, this is the tough part. Where can I install a battery? When I say tough, you can't just go, oh, I want a battery and I'm just going to stick it in the lounge. No, there's Australian standards for installation of battery systems, and the blanket rule is not in a habitable room. So habitable rooms, lounge, bedrooms, study, rooms that you spend extended periods. Basically, in our National Construction Code, it lists what's a habitable room. What's not habitable? A garage, a storeroom, a utility room. Ironically, a bathroom is not considered a habitable room, but I wouldn't put a battery in there. A walk-in wardrobe is considered not a habitable room, even though the bedroom's right next to it. But there's some size restrictions, like the battery has to be 600 millimetres away from a doorway. So unless you've got a big walk-in wardrobe, probably wouldn't go in there. So I've listed a whole bunch of where you can't put them. So that's going to be one of the first challenges, especially if you've got a fairly small block or tight space requirements. It's all about, in case of things going wrong, you can escape. So, for instance, a doorway is a way to exit a building, or a room. So having that 600 mil clearance from doorways, from the edges of windows. So if you have the battery on the outside of the house, it has to be 600 mils horizontally away from a window that ventilates a habitable room. Not under the floor of a habitable room. I'm not talking like in the dirt, but I mean, you've got a garage with a room above, so it can't be under the floor of a habitable room, not within 600 mils of any exit, not under a walkway, because a walkway is an exit path. And if you do put it in a corridor or down the side of your house, like this picture here, you need to have 1 metre clearance in front of it if it is a path to exit. So if it's the way you would leave the property, you need 1 metre clearance in front of it. You also need to have space for electrical workers to work on that system. So they need, depending on the voltage of the battery, if it's below 60 volts, which is probably not likely, you need 600 mils of clearance on the working side. If it's a low voltage battery, which these days people will call high voltage, but over 60 volts, you need 900 mils of clearance on the working side so that the electrical worker has room to work. You can't just make them squeeze into a little corner. And if there is a habitable room behind the battery, you need to have a fire barrier. And the fire barrier has to be 900 millimetres higher and 600 millimetres wider than the battery system, unless that wall meets one of the material requirements for a fire barrier, such as brick, cement sheeting, terracotta tiles. These are all considered natural fire barriers. But if you've got a timber house, you'll find your installer will put up some cement sheeting to create that fire barrier. But it's only required if on the other side of that wall is a habitable room. So if it's a garage, doesn't matter. You don't need the fire barrier. Yeah. Next slide, please. So can I use my EV to power my home? This has been something that I've been waiting for a long time. I'm actually on the committee that writes this standard, ASNZS 4777 Part 2, which is the test standard for inverters, and Part 1 is the standard for installing inverter systems, and we've updated both of them to allow vehicle to home, vehicle to grid, vehicle to load. The catch-all term is vehicle to X, X meaning anything. So it's now possible to have your vehicle as a source of energy to run your home when there's a blackout, or even, I don't know why you do it, export it to the grid. But there are some gotchas. So you need to get the permission of the electricity network to do this. If you're going to connect to their network, your car as an energy source, they'd have to approve it. There has been approvals given already. So in South Australia, there's been some. In New South Wales, there's been some. I'm not sure in Victoria yet. But the real gotcha is the vehicle manufacturer. They have to permit it as well. So for instance, there's my car and then there's my bi-directional EV charger, but Tesla won't let me use the car. We don't like Elon anymore. Won't let the car be used as a source. To my knowledge, there's only been 2 really cars in Australia being used in vehicle to grid. One's the Nissan Leaf, because they have a Chatamo connector, which was already approved for bidirectionality, and the other is the Ford Lightning truck, the old ute. So Essential Energy in New South Wales actually bought one, and they're an electricity distributor, and they're using it as a work vehicle and also vehicle to grid. So those 2. But this is interesting. I was told by one of the battery manufacturers that they've tested 53 EVs that are available in Australia. No, not just Australia, but available in Australia and other countries that are compatible with their bidirectional charger. So it's actually quite simple. It's really down to the vehicle to say, yes, you can do it. Don't try and do it without the permission, because they could actually void your warranty on your vehicle. Considering that many vehicles are connected to the cloud, you might even find they turn off your car. So we're waiting for manufacturers to toe the line. I mean, I think they should, because it's going to be a sales benefit. If you can use your car as your backup source of energy, wouldn't that be another incentive to buy an EV? So yeah, it's very exciting times. Next slide, please, Matt. I think I'm nearly done. I am. Look at that. I'm done. So just as a little self-promo, I have a channel called the Smart Energy Lab. That's the QR code that'll take you to YouTube. You can go with your camera and take a picture of it. And I've got a lot, I think I've made over 400 videos on that channel over the last 10 years. And I regularly review and do installation videos and unboxing videos on renewable energy products. So there you go. Thank you very much. Now we'll have questions later on. Thank you.
Wasn't that awesome? I just love how Glenn speaks in a language that we can all understand. Really appreciate that. So thanks, Glenn. That was very informative as usual. So yes, from batteries, as Glenn said, we can't have batteries without solar, so they go hand in hand. So I'm now going to invite Lloyd, who I've lost. He was down here. Oh, there you are, sorry. Lloyd Heathfield. He's from Yarra Energy Foundation. And they are a not-for-profit group, and they're also working to accelerate the energy transition. And Lloyd leads the solar and electrification programs. So tonight, Lloyd is going to discuss the changes in solar over the last decade or so. Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to everyone, all the volunteers at Healesville for putting this event on. Great turnout. Thanks everyone for coming, giving up a Monday evening. So I'm from Yarra Energy Foundation, like Karen said. Nice and big there, in case you're wondering. But we're a small not-for-profit based over in Melbourne. But we work with, you can go next slide for me there, Matt, sorry. We work with local governments, community groups, and their communities across Australia, really. Largely here in Victoria, largely in Melbourne, but also across Australia. And we work with them to help reduce energy expenses as well as energy emissions as well. So we're pretty lucky that we're in a country where making sustainable choices actually benefits us financially, which is quite nice. But I'm going to be talking about solar today. That's our community battery that we installed back in 2022. So lots of interesting stuff in the battery space, like Glenn's touched on this evening. But what I'm going to be talking about is how solar's changed, whether you can upgrade your solar if you already have it, what are all these different things we have to think about now. Electrification and batteries are the main movement at the moment. We can go next slide, please. So here's a quick graph to show how solar has changed price-wise over the years. You can see in 1975, very, very expensive. And you follow it all the way down to 2022. As far as this goes, it's dropping quite considerable amounts there. Please note, this is in US dollar. This is the global market. This isn't just Australia. This is across the world, what's happened to solar PV module costs since 1975. But when we look in the Australian context and we think about the early days of solar, i.e. pre-2010, which would have been the early adoption phase and not much actually being installed, panels were a lot smaller capacity-wise, so around 150 watts, 200 watts each. Quite low efficiencies, relatively speaking. And the average we were seeing was 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt being installed. I'm sure there's probably some people in the room here who have one of those systems done. And this is when costs were quite high. If you kind of look on the graph here and you can see, that 2004, 2006 mark, you're still paying quite a considerable amount compared to today, right? And as Glenn touched on in his presentation, to combat this, what was given was a premium feed-in tariff to, incentivize basically sending any electricity back to the grid. That was around 66 cents a kilowatt hour. So basically you were rewarded for generating excess and putting that into the grid and pumping the grid full of renewable energy. However, as we move and the market changes and more people adopt solar, things start to change. The size increased, between 2010, 2015, 2016, 2017. We were seeing, 3 to 5 kilowatt hour systems being the average, so bumped up in size. That's because it got cheaper and the technology got better, both working hand in hand there. Efficiency of those panels also increased a little bit. Feed-in tariffs started to drop. You weren't given that crazy premium feed-in tariff anymore. So as Glenn touched on, self-use really starts to become the key driver here, trying to consume as much as you can in your own home. Fast forward to today, into this decade, we're seeing much, much larger systems. The market's well and truly matured now. You can see the costs have really dropped right down. So we're seeing between 6 kilowatt to 10 kilowatt on average being installed on normal Aussie homes, which is pretty fantastic. Efficiency's got up to pretty much as high as we're going to see in this kind of technology. You're getting better warranties. Some European panels are even offering 40-year performance warranties now, which is pretty remarkable. I don't know what else you get a 40-year warranty on. That's performance warranty, by the way. So they'll say, in 40 years, it will still be operating at X%, and they're still smashing those predictions, which is pretty incredible. Plus, why are we going bigger? Not only is it cheaper, not only is it easier to go cheaper, but electrification and batteries are the new norm. We're getting off gas, we're putting in electric hot water, we're putting in electric heating, we're electrifying our cars. So the more electricity we can produce from our own roofs, the better, right? We can go next slide now there. So Australia really is the place for solar. I'm sure a lot of you have solar already. You might tell from my accent, I'm from England. We don't know what the sun is. You're pretty lucky here. You get pretty much year-round sun, like in this lovely picture, even though the panels are a bit shaded. I should have chosen a better one. Oh well. But the policy that was put in place here made solar so cheap and so easy, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the world. It's basically a no-brainer. And that means we have access to the cheapest energy in the world, which is Australian rooftop solar. No one on planet Earth can access cheaper energy than us when we have panels on our roofs, which is fantastic. Again, as Glenn touched on, 40% of households in Australia now have solar, which makes rooftop solar the largest power generator in the country, which is pretty remarkable to think about. Over the course of its lifetime, 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour compared to 25, 28, 30, even more cents that you pay for from the grid. So even when the grid is 100% renewable and we completed where we wanted to get to, the cheapest energy you'll ever have is still from your roof. That's because you're not paying any transmission and distribution costs. It's straight from your roof to your home. It's always going to be the cheapest energy you can ever access. We can go next slide, please. There's just a really big, nice graph to show what I was talking about a bit more visually. This is pulled from Rewiring Australia. It just shows exactly what I was talking about, but it's nice to see it visually, that cost differential there between grid price and the cost of solar over the lifetime there. Yeah, we can move on now. So just quickly, available rebates. Actually, first I'd like to see how many people actually have solar already. Just a quick show of hands. Oh, nice. Okay, beautiful. And how many people installed solar more than 10 years ago? About half of those. Okay, nice. So I won't spend too much time on this since we've already claimed most of that. STCs, Glenn's already touched on those. Same kind of system that's applied to your panels gets applied to the batteries get supplied to the panels, automatic, don't need to worry about it too much. What is important is the Solar Victoria one, that's the state level one, right? That's a $1,400 rebate, which many of you might have claimed, and a $1,400 no interest loan equates to about $29 a month you have to pay back over about a four-year period. Almost always the savings outweigh the repayments, so kind of a no-brainer. This is means tested, so you do have to meet some eligibility criteria, $210,000 household income or less, a property valuation under $3 million, etc. The full list is on the website. What is important to note for about half of you that have solar here is if you've claimed it previously, say more than 10 years ago, you can claim this rebate again. So if your system was installed in 2013, for example, you are eligible to claim a rebate again through the Solar Victoria program. So if you are considering upsizing, getting batteries and things, we're going to talk about that now in the next few slides, but it is open to you again, which is great. So does my old solar need replacing or adding to? This is a big question that I'm sure Glenn gets a lot as well with the battery talks. It's what a lot of people start to think of because like we saw on my first slide, the size of the systems back in the day were a lot smaller. Our usage has increased. Batteries just is going to increase that even more. So do we need to add or replace? On the left, pretty obviously an older system. You can see there 6 panels on the tilt frames, quite old school looking design panels. What's that? Probably about 200 watt panels. So that system's probably about a 1.2 kilowatt system, pretty old school boxy inverter there. You can see on the right, that's obviously the super modern, nice looking panels there. That's probably about 7-8 kilowatt system with the nice modern looking inverter with all the dongles. So what we're looking for a lot of people now is obviously replacing these older systems and trying to put in these newer modern systems to meet the new energy use they have and to potentially add to the battery as well that we're all considering at the moment. Next slide, please. So do you need to add to it? Do you need to replace it? It really depends on quite a few things. Obviously, the age of the system's the biggest one, and I'll go through all these individually in the coming slides. The performance and obviously your energy needs as well, how that's changed since you've installed solar. They're the big 3 you've really got to consider. General rule of thumb is if the system's relatively new and performing well and the same installer is still around and operating, it might be viable to add more panels to that system, but it usually almost always isn't, and I'll talk on why in a moment. If you do have a much older system, it's underperforming, your energy use is increased, replacing that system with a new one might be the better option financially and more beneficial for the actual generation you'll get as well. So for those in the room who are considering a battery or an EV or electrifying their property, you've kind of got 4 options to expand the system size. So you either add panels to that existing inverter, quite hard to do. I'll explain why in the next slides. You either add panels with what's called a microinverter, so it can kind of operate independently. That adds to the cost quite a bit, so probably not always the best solution either. You can add a second solar system to your property, so there's no rules to say you can only have one. You can just add another panel if your roof's big enough, another string of panels, and have another inverter, that's fine. Or the most common with the older system is just removing them completely, replacing it with a new system, and getting all the old components recycled. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I've put animations on this one. Yes, thank you. So firstly, the age and performance. Especially 20-year-old systems. Anyone got a 20-year-old or more system in the room? Glen and one other. Okay, fantastic. But that's obviously likely reaching the end of its warranty lifespan, right? It might have reduced output. The original performance might not be what you're getting anymore. Also, back then, unless you did it yourself or were in the industry, a lot of the installers were pretty shoddy as well. So a lot of the installs might not be up to scratch from day one anyway. Also, physical damage is quite a common thing for panels. Cracked glass, burnt spots, lichen, moss, all this stuff. Obviously, that can be cleaned off, but a lot of the times it can affect the quality of the panels, especially if they're 20 years or older. So number 2, energy needs is the really big one. As I said, our electricity use is increasing because we're electrifying our homes, we're getting off gas, we're buying EVs, we're getting off in ICE vehicles. People's homes are getting bigger, both physically for extensions or growing a family, getting more people living in the property, all increases your energy use, right? And obviously, lastly, why we're all here this evening, adding that battery storage as well. It might require more solar capacity as well. Like Glen touched on, if you have an undersized solar system, you're never going to be able to fully cycle that battery properly. It might take a few days to a week to charge it up. So making sure you've got enough capacity to do all your energy use and charge a battery, you're going to need quite a large system. Next slide. And again, sorry. So compatibility and installation. This is the third thing to consider if you're looking at replacing a system or expanding. The inverter lifespan, you're looking at usually around 10 to 15 years is the warranty that you can get on these inverters. And a failing inverter can cause, a drop in performance. And it's also usually one of the largest things that goes first before the panels. The panels can go for a long, long time. The inverter will usually go first in the system. So if your panels are still ready to rock and they're okay, you might get away with just upgrading the inverter. So it's all case-by-case basis, depending on your exact needs. The really big thing is mixing the old and new panels. So if you were thinking of just saying, I'll chuck another 6 panels on this system, for example, almost all installers won't go near it. They'll just say no straight away. That's because there's so many regulations in this industry, and they change year on year on year. Let's take, for example, your system was installed in 2018 and you wanted to add to it today. Any installer that came and touched that system and worked on it would have to bring it up to the same regulations that we have today. And so that opens a whole can of worms that they have to do all this extra work. There might be void warranty claims, all these things. So most installers will just say, I'm not touching your existing system. I'll get rid of it for you if you want to do that. If you want to keep it, we'll put a new one in. They're not going to add panels to it. Also, the fourth thing is obviously the financial consideration, right? What is the cost of trying to repair a broken down system versus replacing it? Again, you can claim the rebate if your system's more than 10 years old. So a new system might actually be more cost effective long term, and you might get more production as well and more meet your needs and your goals better. We can go next slide. I keep going. So will everything be compliant? I kind of just touched on this. Older systems basically will not meet today's regulation requirements. So upgrades will often trigger full compliance upgrades. So that's why installers walk away from it. You can kind of ping through these for me, Matt. So usually a new separate system will let the installer get around any of these issues. If integrated, you can use the original inverter, then you've got warranty issues as well. So again, 9 out of 10 times, the installer will not add to an existing system. They'll either install that separate system or basically tell you to rip that one off and install a new one. Go next slide. So, talking of getting rid of panels and replacing them with newer ones, obviously we need to know if we can recycle them or not. So there's a nice photo of a panel being recycled, hopefully here in Melbourne. That would be nice. I'm not 100% sure where the image is from. So why does this matter? Just ping up a couple of these. And again, sorry, Matt. And one more time for me. Obviously, this huge solar boom we've had means there's a lot of systems now out there that are reaching the 10, 15, 20-year mark. So many old systems are going to be reaching their end of life, or people need to expand and they've moved on. They have a lot more energy being used in their home now. So Victoria does have a solar panel landfill ban, which is pretty nice to know. So panels must be processed through an approved recycler. And the best way to make sure that they're going to be recycled is basically putting the onus back on your installer. Just asking up front, how are my panels going to be recycled? Can I see proof of this? Can you show me that in writing on the quote? And really, making sure you choose high quality installers that have a transparent disposal process. A lot of, decent installers will be partnered with these Melbourne-based, Victorian-based recycling units. So definitely worth doing a bit of extra digging if you're replacing it, making sure they're not just going to get it in the back of the truck and chuck it off somewhere, wherever they see fit. We can go next slide. And so the pricing, I know we've already touched on it briefly, but here I just wanted to compare to show how much this has really come down since some of you may have installed your systems as well. So not to make you feel jealous or anything, but you can see in 2013 for a 3 kilowatt system, you're looking at between, probably around $8,000. Whereas now in 2023, for a 6 to 7 kilowatt system, so double capacity, maybe around 4,000. I like Glen's comment about, panels are free, you just pay for the installation. It's basically getting to that level. So it's yeah, really, really great to see. Obviously, the drivers of that are just the global manufacturing scale. You know, China's just churning these panels out constantly. It means they've got huge economies of scale, so we're seeing that price really, really drop. Lots of efficiency gains, and obviously the competition here in Melbourne, in Australia, sorry, because the market's so mature, we've got so many rooftop systems now installed. There's installers pretty much on every street. You can find one, I'm sure. That means they're all pitting against each other, finding ways to, you know, improve their efficiencies in the installing market and everything like this. So everything's working towards lower prices. But please, cheaper doesn't always mean better. Just because you see the cheapest quote you can get, you shouldn't move forward with it. There's really, really slim margins in solar. They're not making, you know, too much profit. So if they are offering you very, very cheap prices, they are going to be skimping elsewhere. That's in the quality of the workmanship, that's in the quality of the materials. So, you know, you get what you pay for essentially, but just because it's the cheapest doesn't mean you should move forward with it. Yeah, next slide. So why is this crucial? How do we find those suppliers? You know, many of you have solar, so if you're comfortable and were happy with the service, you could probably go back if you were looking at replacing that system or looking to expand it. I wouldn't be surprised if for a lot of you that installer's no longer in business. Seems to be the way of this industry. A lot of people were, you know, setting up these companies during that solar boom we touched on, installing as many systems as they can, and then, you know, they disappear, they're on to the next thing, they've made their quick money and they're no longer there. So do be careful. And because even if you get the highest quality materials, a poor quality installation will drastically reduce the output. And I think the CEC has poor quality installation is the #1 cause of system issues. So definitely something to consider. You shouldn't just go with anyone and everyone. So there are just a few of the risks, obviously, of installing the wrong installer. I think the real big one is the voided warranties, especially when they're out of business. This is probably the most common issue I come across when I'm working with communities. And then that last one as well, hidden costs and subpar materials. You know, time and time again, someone will give you a very cheap quote. They'll come to the property and then they'll say, oh, I didn't quite see this, I didn't quite see that. They'll add 500 here, 1,000 here. So what you actually pay for is way, way more. Next slide then, please. So how do we pick them? Obviously, accreditation is probably the easiest thing to check. You know, they have to be CEC and SAA accredited, so it's all very, very heavily regulated. If they're not, if they don't meet point number 1, then don't go near them. Ask about the warranties. You know, you want to see industry leading really, but the at least minimum you want to be looking for is there. The panel performance of 25 years, panel products, inverter warranty, ideally 10 years, and workmanship. Please check the workmanship warranty. At least 5 years. If no one's standing behind their own work, then they're not worth your time either. So make sure you get a good workmanship warranty. Again, avoid those cheap deals. They'll compromise on quality everywhere they can to make more margins, so do be careful. We can go one more slide. Obviously, the reputation is a great one. There's so many great tools out there. Again, Glenn touched on some of them, but you know, Google reviews, Solar Quotes reviews, Solar Choice reviews, all these things have a really, really good indication. And then obviously just who you feel comfortable with. If you're having good conversations and you're getting along with them, that's a good sign. If you're feeling pressured and you're feeling that they're a bit rude, then hang up the phone. There's plenty of other people to talk to. I think we're also going to hear about Solar Savers, the program here from your local council. So that's obviously a great opportunity to get connected to vetted suppliers as well. I think that's me done. If you go next slide. Oh no, sorry. A couple of questions to ask those suppliers. You can rattle these off for me, Matt. So yeah, basically asking what the brand is, you know, putting some questions in so they, at least they, you know that they can't mess you around like they would to someone else. If you're asking these questions, they'll think you know a bit more than you do, perhaps. So it's a good thing to give away. But ask you about the brand, you know, where it's made, what the warranties are. are they accredited? What are the warranties on the workmanship as well, not just on the brands? How have you calculated my system size? Have you considered my future usage? Have you considered I'm going to buy an EV in 3 years' time? All these questions you really want to be asking. Again, the warranty, that's the big one. And obviously, you're going to connect to the grid. Most, if not all, installers will be doing that, but you'll be surprised there are some out there that just will fail to even lodge the paperwork. I've seen people that have just been sat on a system for a few months and nothing's happened. So it does happen. Make sure you're talking to the installer. Ask any questions. They're there to answer them. And if they're not happy to answer them, again, you should probably go somewhere else anyway. So yeah, that's my slides, I think. If you go next one. Yes, okay. And that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lloyd, for those really great insights. And I think the good takeaway there is how lucky we are here in Australia. It's good for the planet, good for your pocket, win-win. And just a reminder, folks, that this is all being recorded. So if you're taking notes and you're not quite sure what's happening and want to see it all again, it will be available on our website soon. And if you're on a mailing list, we'll be sending you the link probably within the next week or so. So our third and final speaker tonight is Amy Gregorovich, and she's from our Yarra Rangers Council. And yes, she's going to be excited to share some insights about Solar Savers program and how it's expanded. Thanks, Amy.
Hi everybody, lovely to be spending tonight with you. I think this is my third year in a row talking at a core event, so I'm glad to be back here. And yeah, as Karen said, I'll be quickly touching on some of the work we do in the climate action team here at Yarra Rangers to support wonderful community-led climate action, and specifically leading on from the technical guidance that Lloyd and Glen have both provided around getting solar and batteries, and a program that you can engage with through council to help streamline that process. Next slide, thanks Matt. So this is a very quick and high level overview of what we do in the climate space at Yarra Rangers Council, which is very much guided by our Livable Climate Plan for 2020 to 2030. On the left is what council will do when it comes to renewable energy, resilient buildings, having a zero emissions fleet, sustainable design and climate thinking. But of course, on the right, and very topical for tonight, is how we will collaborate with community. Next slide, Matt. And our first kind of priority or guiding principle is having a thriving Yarra Rangers. So our local community, business and industry are climate ready and energised, access to secure water supplies, affordable renewable energy and the benefits of a circular economy. And next, adapting together. So no one in the Yarra Rangers is left behind in the shift to a low carbon future. Everyone has access to practical support, very timely, meaning we can all play a role, reap the benefits and move forward together. Next. So this is the Solar Savers program. It's a local government initiative that aims to support the electrification of homes and businesses by facilitating access to quality and affordable products, reducing bills and emissions. So it started in 2018, and the word Solar Savers was because it was all about solar. But as of July 2025, it now has been expanded to include solar, batteries, and a range of other products, which I'll talk about in a moment. Next, thanks, Matt. Thank you. And this is how it works. So step one is to visit the registration page and select your local council, Yarra Rangers. Step two is choosing the products or services you're interested in and whether you'd like to receive multiple quotes. Step three is we have a range of vetted suppliers who will reach out to discuss your needs, recommend solutions and provide a quote. And step four is if you like what you see and the conversations you've had, you're welcome to accept a quote and work directly with the supplier to arrange installation. And Solar Savers is there to provide support if you do need. Next step. Thank you. And these are our trusted partners. So ideally, we've done the hard work for you. All of our suppliers are carefully vetted so you can move forward with confidence. And we've asked all of those tricky questions that Lloyd just talked us through. And we've made sure that they have years of experience, meet our quality and sustainability standards, offer those extensive warranties and are competitively priced. And many are also local, which makes it really easy to support our local community and those businesses. So these are the expanded program offerings as of the end of the just recent financial year. So it includes EV chargers, of course, solar and batteries, induction cooktops, split systems, insulation and draft proofing, and heat pump hot water, which is very exciting. Thank you. And I thought I could stand here and talk all about the wonderful aspects of the Solar Savers program, but we actually have a testimonial from James, who's a Healesville resident, who recently went through the program a couple of years ago when it was just solar, who will talk us through his experience with the program and the benefits him and his family have reaped since. So press play. Thanks, Matt.
Hi, my name's James. I'm living here in Healesville. We just had our first baby, and I think it really makes us think a lot about, the future of the planet and what we as a family can do to do our part. And we live on a hill, beautiful sunshine. Why wouldn't we go for solar? I was doing some searching on the internet just around, what avenues there were towards getting solar installed, and Solar Savers really jumped out at me. Government supported, it really gave me that trust. There's a lot of, cowboys out there in the solar world, and really understanding that government backing really helped make the decision. I had a fantastic experience with Solar Savers. Everybody that I dealt with was incredibly helpful, friendly, informative. I had a lot of questions, as you do, because it's a big investment getting into solar, and everybody was incredibly helpful and really made me feel comfortable. In terms of the installation, I think I needed to know that technical people were on top of things. Everybody that I was speaking to knew what they were talking about, and it really made it really smooth for me in terms of just knowing that this was going to be a smooth installation. We didn't have any trouble at all with it. It was all done within a few weeks, and we're up and running with solar. It's fantastic. With the birth of our child, the amount of washing you do and drying you do goes up dramatically. And one thing we know now is because we're using solar, straight away, washing machine, tumble dryer, it's free. And you no longer have any worries around any of those sort of things. Whereas in the past, I think we probably steered away from having a tumble dryer because we thought it would be prohibitively expensive. Now, you're drying all day long. I think if you're thinking about getting a solar installed in your home, the only thing I would say is just do it. I think it's a fantastic thing. Over the last year or so since we got it installed, our power bills have virtually been zero. I mean, it's been incredible how much we've saved through having solar, and I think we've got absolutely no regrets. And I really hope more and more people take advantage of the Solar Savers opportunity and get on board, because it's just win-win. It's a fantastic service.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So fortunately, with the expansion of the new program, the Solar Savers team have got a range of online presentations happening over the next couple of weeks, starting tomorrow night. So if you'd like to know more about the program, jump onto the Solar Savers website and you can register for the various events. So there's one tomorrow night about the program more broadly, and then throughout the rest of the weeks, there's very quick and snappy presentations that will be recorded if you can't make those time slots about the different technologies, if you'd like more information. And of course, if you'd like more information about the program more broadly, everything is there on the Solar Savers website. Next slide, thanks, Matt. And if you'd like some more information from Council more broadly about the Solar Savers program or anything else that we provide when it comes to greener living or energy resilience and electrification, we've got these two booklets. We've got copies out the front if you would like a physical copy, but they're also available on our website. So just Google Greener Living Information Booklet or Energy Resilience in the Yarra Ranges, and those links will come up. And next slide, Matt. And finally, just a quick plug for our My Energy and Water Savers kits, which are kits that are available to borrow through the local libraries, like you would a book or a DVD. And these kits are wonderful to help you measure your water and energy usage and take action within your home or your business if you're wanting to take those smaller initial first steps whilst you arrange these bigger solar and battery installs. And it includes a thermal camera, a thermometer, a stopwatch and power meter to help you kind of investigate what could be going wrong within your property, and some wonderful tips and tricks to get crafty and do some DIY improvements in the meantime. So if you'd like more information about those, you're welcome to come chat to myself or my colleague Jessie afterwards. Otherwise, the lovely staff at the libraries are all across those and can help you pop them on loan. So that's it for me. We'll be around afterwards if you'd like to come talk to us about any of the above or anything else when it comes to local government and council. But I will pass back to Karen to kick off the questions and answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you, Amy. Thanks for that. And can I invite Lloyd and Glen to come and take a seat up here? Won't worry about that microphone. I'll just stand here, I think. It might be easier. So now we come to the Q&A part of the evening, and I think this is almost my favourite session because we get some really great questions, and this is your opportunity to ask our experts here all those burning questions you might have. So does anybody want to kick that off tonight? Right in the middle there. Yep. Sure.
Okay, I'll just repeat the question for the recording. So the question is, will all batteries in a blackout continue to power your house? And also, second part was, will your solar continue to charge your batteries during a blackout? No. It's a really great question. So there are integrated systems where the solar connects to the inverter and the batteries connect to the inverter. So that's an all-in-one system. It's known as DC coupling, and effectively it means that even when the grid's not available, the inverter still has a source of solar to charge your battery. But there are other systems where you have a dedicated solar inverter and a dedicated battery inverter, and when the grid fails, even though the battery inverter may be able to supply you with power, the solar inverter requires the grid to synchronise, and so you lose your solar, but you still have your battery. The third option is the battery doesn't provide backup. So there are some systems which are only self-use. So when the grid goes down, your battery turns off, your solar turns off. So it's a good one to ask your prospective retailer who's going to sell you this system, if that's your requirement, backup, will the system do backup of solar and will the solar work when the grid's failed, and will my battery power my home?
Thanks, Glenn. Any others? Questions? Just in the middle there again.
I think that's for me again. So the question is, any battery systems suitable for a certain BAL rating, bushfire attack level, in terms of being not contributing to a fire? When we talk about the batteries that are on the Clean Energy Council approved list, they're all lithium-ion batteries. They have to be able to sustain a certain amount of thermal ingress before they can go into thermal runaway, but it's not very long. So if your house is on fire, the chances are the battery would contribute to that fire as well. So yeah, the answer is no. Well, no, it won't be certified for a certain BAL level. If the fire engulfs your home, your battery will burn as well and contribute to that. I think that's what you're asking. Oh, I see. Sorry, I think the question then is, does the battery have to meet the Bell rating as well? I've never been asked that one. That might be a Leo question, but we've got an architect in the room, but not to my knowledge.
We had some huge ambitions in the beginning. A bit more realistic now, shall we say?
Oh, that one, yeah, Fitzroy North, but that's still connected to the grid. It's not helping people be off grid. No, it kind of complements the grid.
Yeah, so there's a battery underneath where we're sitting tonight that would power this building if the grid goes down in Healesville. There's one in the library next door as well, and we've got a community battery in Yarra Junction, which might be the one you're talking about, but it's a similar model to the Yarra Energy Foundation one, that it's in front of the meter, so it will still go down if the grid goes down. Yeah, so it goes back to your point, Glenn, earlier around what are you trying to achieve with these renewable energy installs, and is it cost reduction, is it using renewable energy, or is it having energy resilience? And they're not always complementary.
Yeah, that's right. They've got a community battery there, yeah. But it's, yeah, again, it's not to take a whole town off of grid, no.
So the question is, you've got an existing system, 32 panels, 10 kilowatt hour battery. Can you add, under the Cheaper Home Batteries program, more batteries to that? So from the perspective of the Cheaper Home Batteries program, yes, but you'd need to consider if that system is capable of having batteries added to it.
Just up there.
So the question is it true that some batteries can't be used during a power cut or blackout? Yes, that is true, because there are not very few. In Australia, we are very keen on having the resilience of a battery, but there are systems which are very popular in Europe, which are only self-use. So it's all about reducing the cost of electricity. So it is a question you would like to ask when you're choosing a system. Does it provide backup? I often say there's two questions, is how much backup, how much power does it give you, and for how long? Those two things are important to understand. It might give you 5 kilowatts of power, enough to run a few appliances, but not many, not the whole house, and it may only run, depending on what your loads are, for 1 day or even less. The majority of them will provide backup. I'm just saying there are some that don't. Very few now in the Australian market.
But I think, again, I'll just flag that it's very important to just talk with the installer. That's one of your key drivers to get this thing. So they'll have that conversation with you. Yeah.
Cool. Over there. Just down here.
Yeah, I can answer, and then maybe Glenn can compliment me. But the question was, if you store energy in your battery, can your retailer, take it overnight? It depends if you're connected to what Glenn was talking about earlier, VPP. If you're not connected to a VPP, then that energy is yours. If you are connected to a virtual power plant, then they basically can use your battery. They will tell you when they're going to use it, but they're able to draw from it to complement the rest of the VPP. Yeah.
And you get paid handsomely for that.
And you get paid handsomely for that. Yeah, I always do say to, VPPs can be very, very attractive on the surface, but just do your homework, make sure you know what you're signing up for. Sometimes they hide things in the small print and, try and actively confuse people and mislead, so make sure you know what you're signing up for. Yeah.
Right at the back there.
Okay, the question is, the question asked says they have a 3.5 kilowatt PV export limit for their solar system. Can they get a bigger solar system and charge the battery without going over that 3.5 kilowatt export limit? I think that's the question. How much bigger? Okay, so a couple of things. The reason for export limits is that the grid has to protect itself from overload, and so they put limits on how much you can send back to them. Because one of the problems with solar, it's synchronized with the sun. Everyone's pushing back at the same time. So they have all this solar in the middle of the day pushing back towards them. So they put a limit on your export. But when you have a battery, you can prioritize that it charges your battery rather than export that power. That's the biggest advantage of a battery. It can basically give you more value for your solar. So many inverters that have an association with the battery will have a higher ratio. So you might have a 10 kilowatt inverter. If it's DC coupled, this comes back to the first question's question. If the solar connects to the inverter and the battery connects to the inverter, it can do something a bit like sing and dance. It can charge the battery at the same time as it creating AC power and running your home. So in that situation, it makes sense to have more solar than the AC output of the inverter. A ratio of 2 to 1 is not uncommon. So you've got 10 kilowatts of solar connected to a 5 kilowatt inverter. It can charge the battery at 5 kilowatts at the same time as producing 5 kilowatts of AC power to run your home or even export up to the limit the network has provided you with. Yeah, so that export limit is done via an upstream meter associated with the inverter, or what's often called a CT, current transformer, and it will be measuring the flow of energy towards the grid, and when it gets to, in your case, 3.5 kilowatts, it will stop exporting any more. If it's DC coupled, so the solar and battery are connected to the same product, it will try and, as much as possible, send the surplus to the battery until it's full.
Just over here.
The question is there a limit how far away the battery can be from your solar system or your solar inverter? No, it's really about size of cables and the voltage they're being run at. So no, there's not really a limit, though. In practice, you probably don't want to have it on another property. But okay. All right, I'm going to get a little bit technical on you here. So in your case, the questioner is saying that where they want to put the battery is about 40 metres away from where their solar system is, correct? Is there an existing AC supply to that building? Yes. Okay. Depending on the capacity of that AC supply to that building, like can you send 5 kilowatts across that cable, you can have a separate battery inverter with a battery supplying that shed that then sends the energy back to your home, and the solar is also sending energy from the sun through solar panels to your home. So they don't have to be they don't have to be co-located. But there is a little bit of a problem, which is you do need to have for self-use, you need to have the point of measurement for self-use ahead of all of your consumption. So you probably need to run like a data cable or even wireless communication out to that back shed. Yep.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question about technology. How do you see the technology progressing and how quickly? The reason I ask is, you mentioned a few times tonight about investment, maybe warranty around about 10 plus years. The assumption is that we fall under the product for quite a long time. I hate to think that you invest and then very quickly you're all being
Boy, you want to go at that one?
No, I'll let you go.
Okay. All right. Hang on. I'm just going to get my crystal ball. No, it's a good question, actually. You could say, if you look at it from a financial point of view, does it pay for itself within its design life? And so in a way that whether the technology gets better, which it will in the future, doesn't mean you wasted your time buying it now. I mean, I've often said the right time to buy solar is right now. The savings start right now, and the payback is very attractive, very, very attractive for solar only. Solar plus battery, a little bit longer, but it's getting better and better all the time. It's, yep, yep, yep.
But yeah, it's good points. And I mean, there's no guarantees how long it will take those products to actually come to market, get approved, get regulated, all these things. And it just comes back to that question that Glenn keeps touching on: is what are you doing it for? What's important to you? If backup's important to you right now, don't wait. If it's all about financial investment, do some back of the napkin maths and see what fits. But everyone's different, and everyone has their own decision to make. Yeah.
Somebody over here, I think. Yeah.
Go big or go home. Okay, so I hate to sort of say this again, but it depends what you want to do with that battery. If it's about saving money, it's about the amount of investment you're going to put and what the payback on that will be. If it's about resilience, how much resilience do you need? Do blackouts in your area only last hours or days or weeks? So that would be a consideration. When there's a program where you only get one bite at it, like the Cheaper Home Batteries program, you only get one chance to get this very generous rebate. So that can be an incentive to go big.
If I can also add to that, that's maybe where the Solar Savers program can help. So it's an obligation-free process. So you can go through the program, get all of that information around ideal sizes, ideal technologies, how to access the rebates, and there's no obligation to then go down the pathway with our providers. You can take that information elsewhere to a local installer if you wish to do so.
And just like I said during my prezzo there, it's not just about today, right? Like, you're buying this thing hopefully for a long time. So think about what you're going to do in the next 5-10 years. Are you going to get an EV? Are you going to put in electric heating? All these things will change that profile and what size you might need. So.
Somebody over here before.
Amy explained to us that Solar Savers has a list of recommended suppliers, but is there a list, does SAA have a list of all accredited installers and suppliers?
Yeah, that's easy to find online. And another great resource is Solar Quotes and Solar Choice, two great websites.
Sorry.
Solar Quotes, the website, or Solar Choice, there's two websites there. And they have a whole section on their websites about reviewing and giving ratings to both products and suppliers. So you can really go as deep as you want on that kind of stuff.
Okay, do you want to take this?
No, you go.
There's a couple of practical problems, which is sometimes the clamps actually gall, which means when you try to undo the nuts, they break. And so they're going to have to replace the clamps that hold the panels on. The racking system that it was attached to may no longer be available, so they can't get the clamps anymore, so they've got to buy a new racking system. That's not a huge part of the cost, but there's a big labour part. So you're effectively paying for a new installation of that system using your existing panels. But then from Energy Safety Victoria's requirements, if you make any alteration to a system that increases voltage, power or current, they need to bring it up to current standards. So if you're changing anything about the equipment, that will trigger a complete upgrade to current standards, which effectively means you might as well start with a new system. So yeah, it's yeah.
It's an option. It's an option for sure. I mean, my first question would be, yeah, why is it a very small roof space?
Probably time for a couple more questions. There's one up the back there. You can come and join us at Healesville Core.
I've got time, I built that also for my house, like what can I do to retrofit it?
I could recommend the My Energy Water Saver Kit. So that could help you look for like thermal comfort gaps and things in the home. Oh, yep.
It's very cute, it's got beautiful windows, but you
Yeah.
feel the cold, like it's all, I'll have those from Facebook.
And then my
Very poorly made, it's extremely cute, but it's not great in terms of,
yeah. And then my other question would be like, what's the reasoning behind you wanting to take action? And if it is the comfort, like there's those DIY tricks and tips that can help in that space. Is it wanting to be fully renewable powered, and that might be encouraging whoever's property you're on to sign up to a renewable energy powered retail agreement? Yeah, or is it having like your backup power sources, and that might be a bit more complicated for the tiny home setup. So
I just love to not even, you know what I mean? I want to be as sustainable as I can. Yeah, and I will get into that because I had sold where it was my last home. I didn't have that capacity being on my own and buying my own little place, but now I want to do whatever I can. So, yeah.
That's great. Just one more question. I'll just down the front here, I think.
So yeah, the question is, do you need to maintain a battery system? Any electrical installation, whether it's your home, your solar panels or your battery, it's prudent to have some attention to maintenance. It can be visual. Is anything being damaged? Does anything look wrong? It could be the reporting of the equipment. It might report that there is a failed battery module, for instance, and take action. There may be what's called an earth fault. So one of the panels on your roof might have broken and your inverter's raised a fault alarm. But it's actually a good idea periodically to get a licensed electrician just to check that everything's okay, particularly when it's not something that you understand at all from a safety perspective. So, I usually put in my documentation for a customer a maintenance schedule. So it might be like every 2 years, a visual inspection from a licensed electrician.
And just great point to highlight again, just making sure you get the right installers, because if you get one of these issues, the earth fault, for example, 3 years in, 4 years in, and you call up the installer you went with and it's just a disconnected line. It happens time and time again, so just make sure you go the right way.
All right, folks, I think we might wrap it up now. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Thanks for all those great questions. And I really, really do hope you got something out of tonight. And like I said, don't forget, that'll be on our website and we'll be sending out on a mailing list within a week or so. Now, there's a survey we'd love you to complete. It helps us and it helps those who fund us. And we'll send that out as well, but it's just going to magically appear up here in a minute. Any minute, there it is. So if you wanted to scan that now and just quickly fill out the survey, that'd be very appreciated. And I would just like to, let's put our hands together once more for our 3 wonderful speakers tonight. And Rod's going to bring up a few gifts from Healesville Core that we've organised. So thank you so much for your time, your knowledge and sharing it with us. And while I'm thanking people, thank you so much to the Healesville Memo staff. Oh, we're so lucky to have this venue in our town, aren't we?
Are you sure?
And if you don't have to rush home, we have supper available. We've got tea and coffee and sangers, so you can hang around and have a bit of a chat. You're all invited to stay. And once again, if you are inspired by what you hear tonight and you'd like to find out more about Healesville Core and get involved, just come and talk to us afterwards. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you, everybody. Good night.